DIY.
DIYers. It's happening. Shout out to my guy Justin. It's all happening right now. I don't think y'all understand how excited I was for the opportunity to talk to 3D Nati. And we actually had a little conflict on the scheduling, but this is such a DIY story. It was like we go live in an hour. I said, no, we supposed to be live right now. She said she didn't say nothing. Next thing I know, I hear a little bloop on a StreamYard, and she here. And
yeah, I had to skirt.
But you did that. You did that, and not you having better Wi-Fi than some people be having at home. They be struggling on that 5G. You found something. Look, I'm so excited to talk to you today. How you doing first and foremost?
I'm doing really good. I'm excited to talk to you. You know, like I said, it had been some time. I've been following you and been a follower, subscriber. Wow. So I'm excited to talk to you. I'm doing really good.
Say, look, okay. So this is something I do for all my guests. You know, we in a new time period, and how you feel about AI in general? What's kind of your sentiments with it?
I am not mad at it. You know, I hear some people get upset with certain things, but my stance is, you know, if you can use it in a creative way, if you don't use it as if you don't have a brain, you know what I mean? Yeah, because some people like to use AI. They're not creative at all. They don't, you know, try to put their heart in their work, and they just wanted to do the work for them. I don't respect that. But I feel like we've been using programs and platforms and all of this stuff. So if you can get something that can enhance what you're doing, then I'm not mad at it, you know.
With that said, it's a great answer. With that said, mine's is called not Chat GPT. I call her Chat GPTiana because like we have a good personal relationship. Me and her, I'll be telling her, no, you wrong.
Okay.
Your sources. But it says my guest today is a true DIY legend in hip hop. 3D Nati is an elite lyricist. I put a huge emphasis on elite lyricist, businesswoman, an independent force whose grind has taken her from the streets of New Orleans to world stages without ever needing a major label. One time for that. Hold on.
That is very true.
From converting a van into her own mobile studio. This is the thing that got me. I see this recently. To building a 6-figure real estate hustle by sharing game on OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Continue.
And this is Chat GPTiana.
Chat GPTiana. Yeah, see, it's different. Mine's different. It's a little different. She flipped the indie playbook upside down. Today we're talking about her powerful journey, her eye for talent, and her vision for hip hop's future. Please welcome 3D Nati one more time. Did they get it right?
That is amazing. That's absolutely accurate.
See, sometimes she get it right. Sometimes I'll be like looking at that. I'll be asking questions about myself, and I'm like, that's stupid because I never lived it before. Where you getting your information from? For you, in your own words, who is 3D Nati for somebody who has never been able to have the pleasure of knowing you or your music?
I am a passionate creator. I am a creator. I create things. So it's not just rap. I create opportunities. You know, I like to walk in a room in whatever space I am. I'm changing the energy in a positive way. So I just like to create stuff. When it comes to music, I am a lyricist. You know, so I love to play with words. I love storytelling. I love the art of hip hop in general. You know what I mean? So I am a sister, a friend, a cousin, you know, all of those things. But, you know, the biggest thing is I'm a creator. I like to create things for the better. I want to leave the world a better place than the way that I found it, you know?
I promise, hearing you talk, you remind me of home. You remind me when I go there and they be like, oh, City Boy didn't came down here. My Lafayette, Louisiana folks, it sounds like home cooking in a human form. So I appreciate the accent and all that good stuff. Come on now. Let us know a little bit about where you're from though. You know, what was the hip hop scene like growing up in New Orleans for you?
So I'm from the Third Ward. I'm from Uptown. So where I am from is heavy. It was let's see, Soldier Slim, Juvenile. So these are all the artists that's from the particular area that I grew up in. So
Mm,
I'm not, Uptown is also Lil Wayne, but that's the 17th. So the third wall is Juvenile, Soldier Slim, Master P, C Murder. As a matter of fact, KLC, his family was a block away from me. So I
wow.
got to see, yeah, like I got to see all of those type of dudes passing on my block when I was really, really young.
Yeah.
So I would see the whole family and like the camaraderie, and when Master P would pull up with his cars and stuff on the block. So I was able to see how music changed the lives of some people in my neighborhood that was very close to me. So
Mhm.
I think not just falling in love with music making itself, but also seeing that, damn, this I know what they was living like at a certain point, and that's such and such's cousin, that's KLC's cousin, and oh,
Mm.
he's riding in his car. So I was able to see what that hustle looked like, what the music actually changed, how it changed their lives from very close.
I promise I hear this in many different forms in terms of stories. When you're talking about somebody, that's why I ask these origin story questions. I mean, I know there's
Mhm.
information that's already out there, but what I've noticed is that the greats, and I do consider you one of the greats,
I
3D
appreciate
Nati,
that.
the greats always are exposed to those before them that are doing like the greatest things of that time.
Mhm.
It's something about almost like you could say it's on a spiritual level. Maybe it's an exchange of like, being in the presence and whatever that energy is that's flowing, it kind of goes to the next person. But I
Mhm.
don't think like when you hear, Kendrick talk about seeing Easy E at the Compton swap meet when he was really young, I don't think
Yeah,
that's by accident. I think that, depending on whoever's belief system, I do feel like that is part of letting you know that this has always been it's always been in your stars.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Often you hear stories from different artists and they have these experiences that were life changing for them, that kind of inspired them.
Mhm.
So yeah, growing up and seeing those guys make it, or the Mia X's and stuff like that, I definitely feel like that was the spark, a little spark for me to see that that dream was tangible.
Right,
And
right.
then you also got to understand the type of people, the type of artists that I'm speaking about too. Yes, they are huge major artists now, but back then they were selling CDs out the trunk. They was,
Mhm.
it was this was before the huge deals and everything, but they were independent music rap hustlers.
Yeah.
So I got to see that too, which made it even more desirable. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's parts of me that saw that coming up where I'm at in terms of Carson, California. I saw a lot of independent artists that I didn't recognize it in the moment. Even when I did become sort of, came into my own as an independent artist, I remember remember being in the middle of LA, and me and the homies is like waiting after we went to like a in store, and this lady pulls up in the car, pulls down all her windows. In LA, that's something that's like, okay, what's going on?
Yeah.
She get out the car and she say, "Y'all ever heard of Nipsey Hussle? Here's a city for all of y'all." I'm like,
Ah.
when you around that kind of like street team, and you hardly see that nearly as much as I did coming up. When you
Mhm.
see that, it does something to you that lets you know, like, oh, there are people out here that are really getting it and not necessarily leaning all the way in on the internet, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, next question I have: do you remember the first verse you ever wrote? Because you are an elite lyricist. Do you remember the first verse you ever wrote that made you say, "Yeah, I'm really like that. Like I'm really nice."
Um, I don't know if I remember the first one, but I remember there was a point in time. I remember one that was probably the most impactful, right?
Mhm.
So, well, two. I'll give you two. The first one I was gonna bring up was like 12th grade. I would finish my work. I had, really good grades, right? So
Yeah.
I was the one that would finish my work real quick. And then I would talk shit. I would kind of disrupt the class because I already knew I was good with my grades, right? So I'm talking to my friends or whatever. And my teacher, I noticed that what she would do was like, if you disrupt the class, she would make you, if you pass the note, she would make you read it out loud. So now when I look back, I know it was very manipulative, but
Right.
when she caught me, she told me to read what I was saying in front of the class. So I used this as my opportunity to perform.
Say less.
So,
Say less. You mean to do it right there? Right
yeah,
there, right there.
yeah. So what I ended up performing was this verse, but it was more so talking about my life and like certain things that I had experienced, and
Right.
the whole class was just brought to tears, really.
Yeah.
You know, it was a lot of people after that started coming to me and telling me certain things about their life. And even my teacher from that, the next day, she talked to me. We were just, and I saw that she had a different respect level for me from that point on.
Wow.
Because I always put things about my life and, reality rap, I would say. So I used that as an opportunity, which was kind of manipulative because I knew it would get her off my back a little bit.
Right.
But I also was able to perform.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, but then at the same time, I'm somebody that my philosophy on life is everything is happening for you and not to you. So even the good, there's even the bad has a little bit of good that it
yeah,
serves as well, right? So when
yeah,
I think about a moment like that, um, to me that's preparation. That's
yeah,
preparation for other moments because I'm sure even you being confident in your skill set and what you're doing, there's still got to be a little bit of nerves of like, I'm about to really do this. Like I had this plan, but I'm about to really do this in front of them. And what if they don't like it? What if they,
yeah.
you know what I mean? So
Yeah, I think, see, for me, because rap had always been a form of escapism for
mhm.
me. You know what I mean? So I knew I can create these worlds or I can express this world that I wasn't talking about. So all of these things, I would be able to go to this place that was outside of myself. You know what I mean? So I didn't really share a lot of it with everybody, but that was my opportunity because another thing about that story was I was new to that school. So I was making friends. I got,
Mm.
how I got put out of one school and I went to another school mid-year,
Okay.
so these
That's the
people at the
hardest.
school did not know that I was rapping. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So that was my introduction to them. And then from there I started battle rapping on the yard and all of this type of stuff. So
So
yeah,
where was your confidence? How old are we talking about at this time?
that was high school then.
High school. Where was
Yeah,
your
that was high
confidence levels at? Your confidence was through the roof because being in a new environment, I know what it's like. I'm a kid that moved around a whole lot when I was a kid.
school.
So I know when you get in that new environment, it's almost like, all right, I'm gonna fill this out first, and then I'll let y'all get to know who I am. But the
Yeah,
confidence to jump into a new environment like that and be like, whether y'all gonna judge me or not, y'all gonna get these bars like that. That's a lot of confidence.
I think for me, that probably came from the fact that I feel like I can communicate in my music better than
Mhm,
I actually can. I don't really like doing interviews.
mhm,
I'm not, I'm not someone that goes into the room and tries to be the center of attention. I'm more observant. I have my friends and we chill or whatever, but I know that that is my form of communication. Rap
got
is
it.
the best way for me to communicate. So me introducing myself in that way was the best form of introduction for me. So I
Right.
think that's where the confidence came from in that.
No matter, I know you see, and I do appreciate you doing the interview today because you out there on the road, you out there. We got to definitely talk about the van at some point. But everywhere I go, when I do research on you, I hear about your work ethic, and
Mhm.
it's not like you got to go searching for that. You see it all over. No matter if I'm going to the websites, no matter if I'm going to the actual streaming platform, you got a catalog like crazy.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of folks know you for your work ethic, but not everybody knows the setbacks that you faced early on. What
Mhm.
was some of the toughest lessons you had to learn as an artist trying to break through early on?
Um, Coming to the harsh realization that not everyone is going to see your vision just because you have talent.
Mhm,
There was a point in time where you have all these people that are like grasping at you, they see the talent that you have and they want you to be a part of what they have going on, but
mhm.
they don't really understand you. So that's just like another, token on their belt as opposed to them seeing you for who you are and wanting to assist you with your vision. So sometimes that can be a blow to an artist who really loves what they do and they have a mission to share what they want to share with the world. They might see, oh, she's this female rapper, I want to make her like the other female rappers, because for me or for them, it's formulaic and I know it's a business. So that was tough for me earlier on because, there was a certain point where I wanted a family, so
Yeah.
I'm coming, these are huge artists that I'm looking up to and all of that. So when they want me to be a part of what they have going on, but then I really understood that they didn't care about the art for real. It was just, hey, this female rapper is popping.
Right.
Let me get me one. And I was just going to be that one on their label as opposed to developing, my skills and all of that stuff. So that was tough for me.
Yeah, that's a huge lesson I learned later on personally, right? Where, you don't realize sometimes that when you see somebody that has what looks like an established business or they have a lot of motion, you don't know sometimes that it's because they see people like you and you become the business, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, depending on what the dynamics are, the relationship or the person that you're meeting, you're like, I want to put my best foot forward, not knowing like they probably need you a lot more than you need them, no matter how large that name is. I think that's something that kind of struck my independence early on was, realizing that nobody had the answers to the questions that I had, and they had to go get to somebody else to reach to somebody else to get to somebody else to finally get the answer.
Yeah.
You've been very, very, especially in the music that I hear, you've been very, very clear about your pride and independence. You've been very, very clear about, I don't got to do none of that freaking nigga stuff that y'all be doing, parties and all that shit. I ain't got to do none of that. I'm me. I get to do me. I love that. Because that's something I definitely do within my own music. But I'm sure, like you said, you've had a lot of opportunities. Did you ever come close to signing to a major? And what made you turn that down?
Yeah, several times. And I actually did do a deal with Universal Records, but that deal, so that was with All Def Digital, and it was a new type of deal at the time. It was for content. So this was like when this was Russell Simmons and Steve Rifkin. They had a company called All Def Digital, and what they were doing were they were signing content creators from YouTube. So it was Spoken Reasons, it was Nikki Heaton, it was Ryan Destiny. She played the fire inside with the Clarissa Shield story. So it was a lot of artists who were on YouTube creating, and what they would do is sort of like a record label, but they would give you a certain amount of money to license your content, your YouTube content up front. So they would have the first right of refusal. So it wasn't just about, it just so happened that I was making music and music videos, but for them, it wasn't just about the music. I was shooting my own videos, directing, editing, delivering an entire project. And the same with Spoken Reasons. He was doing skits and all of that stuff. So they would get that content first, put it on their page, and they would be getting advertising dollars. They would give us money up front. So it was a deal like that. And then once that deal was over, I was able to get all of my content back. So I've done a deal before, but I never wanted to sign like a traditional record deal. And that was a non-exclusive deal. So at the same time, I was delivering that content to them. I still owned the music, so I can still stream, I can still sell it. They just wanted the content that I was making around it.
Wow. So you know what you disclosing that tells me?
What's up?
You and I were co-workers and didn't even know it.
Oh, really?
I did all Def News.
That's how I know you, because I'm like, I know you somewhere else.
We might even cross paths.
Yes.
Yeah. I was doing all Def. I was doing All Def News, and that's when because I already had my YouTube channel, and that's where they kind of found me. My dog Blame the Label was the one that kind of brought me as an introduction there. And they were doing like their own kind of news, hip hop news. And I had never done anything like my content at the time was like producer content.
Yeah.
So I never did anything like researching on artists. And when I tell you they fired me up, one day I decided to go in there with some skinny jeans. I don't know why I did that. And they said my top half didn't match my other half, because they also had all Def Comedy on there. They
Yeah, yeah,
fired
yeah.
3D. They fired me up. They said I looked like SpongeBob. I was like, I don't know. But beyond that, like just being in that environment where it was inspiring to see what Russell was building. But at the same time, I think that's when I really started to realize, like, damn, like this is an opportunity for me to be seen by a lot of people and have the. But then another part of me was like, but ain't this why we chose to be independent? So it's kind of one of those moments where you get close enough and you realize, nah, like this is why I want to be independent.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. That's crazy that we was dead ass co-workers at that point.
Yeah, right out in Cali too. And then there were other situations, like probably one of the most notable, and some people were introduced to me through Timbaland. So I shot a video called Switch that started to go viral online. I was rapping over a bunch of Timbaland's beats. And the story goes, his barber saw the video and showed it to him. And within the next 24 hours, I was out in Miami at the Hit Factory. Timbaland flew me out there, and I was working with them for 10 months, and they wanted to sign me. And I'm saying they, but it was Mosley Music Group. So yeah. So I've had my encounters, and I've worked with so many different artists, but and labels, but independence has always been important to me,
Where's the roots that connect you to the independence? Has that been something from day one where, like you said, you saw all these stories that were playing out in front of you? A lot of the culture out there was about independence. Is there any other sources that we might be missing that might have inspired that line of thinking?
Probably because of my upbringing as well. And I've seen certain situations within my family. I've seen certain people around me. I saw like the heights and the lows, and I understood what it meant to be your own boss. I understood the pride that you take in creating something and being able to go from, like my lawyer used to say, from soup to nuts, like the end of from the start to finish of your project, being able to deliver it in a certain way. And then I also write songs for major artists, so I'm able to be in some of those rooms still, and I see what those artists go through, or getting something that they love and they want to put out but they can't, or all of these certain things and setbacks. So I think all of those things probably has influenced the fact that I just remained independent.
Yeah, same here. And I hate to keep making it about me, but I'm listening to you, and it's like, as a DIYer, I'm just so inspired by you, and you get me thinking about the journey and things that inspired that. I saw my pops. Had 2 businesses of his own, and I saw that experience, but I still didn't have any desire to do anything. It wasn't until I just felt like God kept showing me artists at their lowest.
Yeah.
He kept showing me artists that I thought had everything going for them. And then he would show me them at their most human and most vulnerable. And it was almost like he was pointing to it and saying, is this what you desire so much?
Yeah.
Because you have no idea what some of these artists go through. Murs did that to me when I was in Texas one time. We went to a tour stop, and he says he was drunk. I don't think he was drunk. He said, you're looking at all these artists around you that got these deals. He said, you don't know how many hands is in their pockets. He said, stop being envious of what you see. Broke me down in tears.
That's serious though. That is very true. And especially when it comes, I would say, especially when it comes to female artists too. There are a lot of female artists who come in one way and end up going another way because people don't believe in who they are, and they try to mold them into who they should be. So you lose your identity, and so many things. So not only is independence important, but I'm a grown ass woman, so I know who I am as well. Sorry about that. So for me, it's like I also, like, autonomy is important.
Yes, it is.
Not just independence, because I'm not someone that's bullheaded. If the right deal and the right situation, the right team, I'm not going to say no, but unfortunately I haven't found a team that I can work with in that sense, that understands, believes, and all of the things, checks all of the boxes, you know?
And when you do so many things at the high levels that you do them, don't let somebody try to offer you stuff and you like, but I can do that myself.
Yeah.
Or I
Yeah.
have access to people who can do that, and we already have really solid relationships. Now, you mentioned this, especially being a woman in this field, this male dominated field. Obviously, it's still a very different experience than what any man could ever understand.
Mhm.
What's a challenge that you face that your male peers didn't have to even think about?
I would have answered this a very different way before all of the Diddy and all of the other stuff came out. But I
Yeah.
have had, certain guys try to hold, very important people try to hold things over my head to get, things that they wanted from me, or to make me react or respond to them in a certain way. And I ain't going, never
Yeah.
have,
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate because I've seen certain women get sold dreams, by producers or someone. You hear the stories,
Yeah.
so that used to be difficult, but I think now, because I've established myself in a certain way, there's a certain type of respect level that comes with what I do and how I carry myself in general.
Right. Based upon the story you told me about, you said manipulating, I still think it was very crafty the way that you got yourself to go ahead and say the lyrics. But based upon that story you told, I kind of have an answer already in my mind. But how do you stay grounded in a game that often tries to box women into their own image?
Mm. Um, I feel like I just go within a lot. I just go within. I know who I am. I know what I want, and I'm so occupied with that vision
Mhm.
that it's hard for me to get out of that. I think that is what draws me to creativity and creation in general, because my focus is always what I can make, how I can make this better, or I'll
Right.
have this thought in my mind, and now I gotta, now I'm fixated on trying to bring this thing to life. You know what I mean? So there are certain, I'm not someone that's like into the bullshit a lot.
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
not, I don't go out just to be seen, any of those type of
Right.
things. I just really love creating.
Facts.
So the art and the act of creation is what grounds me.
Yeah, see, hold on. This is a DIYer in the building, man. Hey, watch y'all mouth. Sit down somewhere, learn something. Shit. I'm sitting here just cheesing ear to ear because I'm like, these are the kind of conversations we have here because the DIYers, for me, DIYer is just a new name for independent artists.
Mhm.
You know, and that's the thing about it. I think some people think independent artists and they immediately start naming names like, some of the folks who are dominating, like the Russes, like the Tech N9nes, the
Yeah.
Russell right now is killing it. But I don't think they understand that it's very similar to how you'll see in business where you have solopreneurs, you'll have entrepreneurs, you'll have, like specifically solopreneurs where they know if they want to execute upon a plan or an idea that comes to mind, they leave themselves a very small window to make that happen.
Yeah.
And in some people, they have staffs and they like to, run it past the professionals in their team. But some of us are just made different. And I get that feeling that is you because I already have an assumption, but I want to ask you, how quickly do you move from these ideas that you have into action?
It all depends. It varies, but 9 times out of 10 is very quickly, because sometimes they can be fleeting. You know what I mean?
Right. What do you mean?
Um, I
Well,
heard, I heard I think I heard something recently about how, and I might get this story wrong because it was very recent, but how
mhm,
Michael Jackson used to have a notepad by his bed and he would wake up and write these
mhm,
things. Um, like when you have, first of all, these are gifts. It's a gift to be able to create something. It's a gift to be able to think about something and then actually give birth to it, right?
right, right.
So I feel like whenever I have these moments or I think of an idea, I think of a concept, even with building this van, like I
Yeah.
didn't want to wait, you know what I mean? Like I wanted to see it through. So It is a blessing. It is a gift to be able to, first of all, have the thought. But you know how many people you might have grown up with that tell you, yeah, I'm gonna do such and such, or when I get my money from this whatever, I'm gonna buy this, I'm gonna do that. So not only having these ideas, but being able to bring them to life. When you have the ability to bring something to life, you better get on that shit quick, because somebody else might have the same idea. Or somebody else may be wishing that they had the ability or were in your position to bring these thoughts, these concepts, these business ideas to life. So I feel like you got to act on it quickly. That's your gift.
Man, Pharrell says something I thought was beautifully put, in that he says, when you're given an idea, you have to understand it's like being in a library and picking out a book, and you might, lean the book out far from the other books. He said, it's up to you whether you want to pick it up and check it out. But if you put that idea back inside the bookcase, somebody is going to check it out.
Yeah.
Right. It's almost like an energy exchange, in that sometimes I was given an idea. This is going to be random. I was given an idea of a water bottle that tracks the amount of water that you're drinking. It don't sound so novel right now, but I came up with this in my mind 2013.
Yeah.
Before all of these I think it was a company called Hydrate was the first one. And I wrote it down in my book, and I was like, I don't know how the hell I'm going to bring this to life, but I feel like something about having like an app that goes with it and accountability partners, it would make people drink more water.
Great idea.
Thank you. I wish I would have did something with that, because not even a year later, God was like, oh, you're not going to do nothing with it? Say less. Gave it to this company called Hydrate, and I ended up buying it because their idea is kind of dope, though, where the water will actually light up. The LED lights light up at the bottom to remind you to drink water. So for those in front of the computer all the time, having that little side distraction in our eyes, you're like, oh, well, they need to drink some water. So it's a dope concept, but it's one of those things where it's like you have to check them ideas out, because if not, somebody else is going to be blessed with it and execute it.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like I've had certain ideas throughout my career, and especially as an independent artist, by doing those things, that has pushed me further, because not having that team, not having that machine behind me. So, 2013, I created an app. So I had my music on the app. People were able to buy my stuff. 2017, this is before Instagram even had a live. I had a group of my top supporters on across all media. I got one of those luxury buses, and I had them bus to my house at the time, and then I did a performance with a live band, and my brother can cook really well, so he created this menu and these drink menus, and I charged a premium for my top fans to show up to my house. And now years later, someone like LaRussell has the pergola and things like that. So you have to, and all of this stuff is well documented, but I'm saying, like, you have to do these things, because when you have a vision to do them, then if you don't do it, like you said, the Pharrell quote, someone else can, will, and what's going to happen from there? Somebody's going to be telling you that was a great idea, Curtis. You should have.
Because I didn't know you yet. I feel like you would have been a friend of mine. You'd have been accountability, like, you better do something about that.
Yeah.
Look, you better go put that into action. My thing was, not to quote R. Kelly, but I ain't never hog tied about it. What am I supposed to do with this? What am I supposed to do with this idea? The hell am I supposed, like, I had it, and I sat there and wrote it, and I was trying to make pictures, and I don't draw that well. I was trying to make pictures, and I was like, it's something. I know it's something.
Yeah.
And then I looked up, and I think I might have seen a Facebook ad, and I was like, okay, God, I hear you.
Yeah.
But to that point with LaRussell, I think there are also, we're exposed to it sometimes to plant a seed, and then some people are in position to actually, grow that seed and water that seed. And have you been to the pergola yet?
No, not yet. Actually, I'm going back. You're in LA, right?
I mean, more San Diego. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So actually, I'm going back to work with my guy Mars. I'm going back to
I
Cali.
just interviewed him. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I plan to. I already said that. Yeah.
Don't be coming out in the city and we don't work on something. That's all I'm saying. Like, don't
you know what I'm saying?
Like, we gotta look. What you need? I got production. I send that through. Let's make it happen.
All of that.
So what I was gonna make a point with LaRussa was that seeing the pergola on video, I'm sure as you see that you are hands-on with the video as well. We can make things look really amazing on video, and then you actually go to these places, and not that the pergola wasn't amazing, but it really like gave me goosebumps how much of a home it was.
Yeah.
Right. I pull up on the street and it's a packed out street. I look at the park and I'm like my park at home. Then I get to the backyard, and with the exception of all the, you know, the expensive setup that he has, I'm looking at the walls and I'm like, I'm a very like what do they call that? Is it kinesthetic, or what is it called? Where you got auditory, visual, and kinesthetic, I think it is.
Yeah, I believe it's kinesthetic.
Kinesthetic. I'm like, this is a real thing. I'm like, this is just this is, at the end of the day, he's doing amazing things, but this is just a backyard. And as a DIYer and an independent, I said, okay, now I feel like a seed has been planted. And that's when I decided to create a downstairs stage in my house.
Okay.
Where I was like, you know what would happen if we sold tickets via Eventbrite and just do a show? We had like $400 worth of tickets we sold, and it dawned on me, I get to go drink water out my fridge and go upstairs after this show. You know what I mean?
Straight up.
Because we know shows it's a commitment, especially now in this economy. It's always been a commitment, but you know, there's a lot of shows that I was losing money on and never really thought about it until I had to operate business in the space of YouTube. You know, can you kind of talk about some of the things that artists go into this and have expectations, and maybe some of the things that you had differently in terms of mindset, where not everybody thinks like that? Everybody's checking their checks and balances and seeing, is this a good investment? Is it a bad investment? It's almost like we're always told as rappers, everything is paying dues, so it's a good investment.
No, no. I think, first of all, you have to be a little bit more tapped in with every aspect of your business. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to play every role in every position. You have to understand that some people do this better. So it might be better if you outsource this, but you understand this is how much it's going to take for this to get done. This is your goal for this to happen. So if this person, you have some backups. If this person is like dragging their feet, then you can pull these people in. So I think a lot of times, if you don't have that DIYer mindset, you can go into things with the misconception that everything will just be done for you. You know what I mean? I think it kind of changes now with the internet, and now you're able to distribute your own music. Now you're able to start to finish. You can do a song today and have it out on all the platforms within a couple days. What the hell was that?
That's happening. I don't be doing that. You can't do this. You can't do this.
You know, I'm outside the hell.
Because I for sure had follow-up questions about, okay, so your fireworks set up inside the van, how does that work in terms of not setting things on fire? No, go ahead. Good.
But nah. So sometimes, you know, I feel like artists can go into the situations thinking that things will be done for them. Right. So there's a difference when you have that mindset of being able to do things on your own, because first of all, you reverse engineer. You know what I mean? You have the goal first and you work backwards, as opposed to saying that you want to get to this place and now you finding all of these stumbling blocks. You know what I mean? So having some people that believe in you, of course, is important, but also understand that if you don't have those people, you just find them, you hire them, but you never stray away from your goal. You know?
Hold on, that's the first one of many right now. There you go. All right, so I want to talk about it. We gotta talk about this van, because you just being in that van and you sharing the process of it. You gotta understand, I'm an HGTV type of person, right?
Really?
I can have HGTV on in the background on mute because it just makes the room feel like it look better, right? I don't know what psychology that is, but I throw that on. I promise. Don't they got like a different color correction than everybody else got?
Same. I feel the same way. I will put it on and get inspired, you know. So yeah, I feel you.
So when I heard you use the terminology tiny home, I said, I bet you should be watching HGTV. I know you should be watching HGTV. Look, because you didn't just call it because I've heard people try to do this concept and say, okay, it's a studio in a van. You said a tiny home. I said, nah, she knows something. She knows something. You turned your van into a studio, 3D.
Yeah. I mean, I live in this van. So
and you live in the van.
Yeah, so I have I mean, I can't move my setup right now, but
Right.
I have my microphone, Neumann U87, the eyeball, my Apollo twin, my Yamaha speakers you can see is mounted right there, but my bed and everything is back here. So it was very important to me not only to be comfortable, but actually, and we was talking about this offline, but to actually have high quality sound. You know, I'm not out here living in squalor, and I don't want my music to sound like I'm beating two cans together. So it was I wanted to build this. I wanted to build this on my own so that I can know every nook and cranny and make sure my sound is right, because I would not have embarked on this journey if the music coming out of this van wasn't going to sound right. You know,
I gotta share this. Pimp My Ride could never. You damn right it could never. You damn right it could never. Pretty Nati. We got the whole studio in your van. And you know what's crazy? Like, I wish I had the video on me. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say they used to be tripping on there. You tell them, oh yeah, I like popcorn. Now you got a popcorn maker. I
ain't never hog talking about it. Why do I have a popcorn machine and why do I got a fish tank,
bruh,
in my trunk?
That was wild. You know what's crazy? Someone on Facebook commented and said, where's Pimp My Ride? And the guy, Mad Mike, commented and invited me to I think he was in California, but he invited me. He was like, yeah, I want to see the van. So I thought that was dope too.
He can see the van. Don't have them putting no ideas in there, because you got this thing taken. It's funny because I was watching not to get off the subject, but I was watching a YouTube channel, and his whole channel is all about finding all of those Pimp My Ride vehicles that people ended up selling, and then trying to rejuvenate them and bring them back to life. And so he tries to make things work. But a lot of those things, it's so crazy when you think about how, like, that time period of the 2000s, everything was so colorful, everything looked so good at that time. You look at it now, and it just looked like a circus that been shut down for 15 years. It's all dusty. It's just tacky, right?
Real tacky.
But look, the thing about it that I'm so impressed by is that you really be hands-on. I saw you using tools. I'm not embarrassed to say this as a man that I don't know how to use right now. All right. The way that you were hands-on in that van.
Yeah.
Don't get it twisted. 3D Nati is hands-on in that van.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see. You know, I really want to know, what was it about? Like, what was about the idea? What sparked the idea, and how has it impacted your creative freedom?
Well, first of all, I owned property in New Orleans. I had a home in New Orleans. And I want to say maybe about a year or two, I bought my house about a year or two before the pandemic. So when things shut down, I had nothing else to do outside of, trying to beautify my house. And my mama never owned a house. You know what I mean? So I was taking a lot of pride in fixing things myself. I was always very hands-on. But, I remember a hurricane hit and some shingles came off of my roof. So I wanted to figure out how to do that. So I got up on my roof. I realized that there was no leak, and I filmed all of this and put it on YouTube because, mind you, I could not go anywhere. Right. So I started to do certain projects around my house, and a lot of DIY projects around my house. I built a sauna in there and all kind of things.
You don't casually just say you built a sauna. What you mean? Everybody don't do that. 3D. Everybody don't do that. You talking about, I just built a sauna,
Yeah, I was just enjoying. I was just enjoying beautifying my house, right? So then I had a loss in my family, which was my grandmother, who was very, very close to me, very instrumental in my life. And when that happened, I started to see things a lot differently. You know what I mean? The things that I used to enjoy, I was not enjoying them as much as I used to. I wasn't enjoying getting up and going upstairs in the studio and making music. I like to skate. I wasn't doing that. I wasn't playing tennis. I wasn't doing a lot of stuff. So I went out on first of all, I went and I went on a cross country road trip. And that kind of reinvigorated me in a way, because I saw the world outside of just going to a city so I can perform, or going to the city so I can do an interview or something like that. I was able to just go into these spaces and really see the beauty of this place that I exist in. You know what I mean? So I also at the time got hired on this show called Wicked City, a TV show filmed in Atlanta. So I was going back and forth. So I decided to move. And then I'm like, I'm spending more time on the road and moving around anyway. Why don't I, just get a van? And I ended up getting a van, building it out, putting my studio, because wherever I go, I had my studio equipment. So even when I was on set, and I just started to fall in love with all these gifts that I have. You know what I mean? Well, fall in love again with these gifts that I have. So I'm like, put this shit to use. You start making music again, start building things again. And now, life is, I can't explain it, but the gratitude that I have for all these things, that they never went away. They never went away. So I have a greater appreciation for all the things that I have.
What advice would you give for someone who might be on the beginning of a storm like that, right? Losing someone, because that's a common story that you hear, where some people never come back to the things that they found joy in because of how important that person was. What might be some advice that you would give somebody that is at the beginning of one of those storms?
That's a good question. It was very extreme for me. Not everyone is going to sell everything they own, but I felt like I was so far that I had to strip things away to add them back, like the process of elimination. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is actually bringing me joy? So I'm not saying to be as extreme as I was, but ultimately that was the answer. The answer was really sit with yourself and find out the things that actually bring you joy, because a lot of times we get all these things put on top of us day to day, that we just find ourselves in autopilot, just moving. And we don't realize some of the things that we actually have, or they kind of fall to the wayside, that used to bring us joy. So for me, I was realizing that it was family. It was being able to talk to my brothers and pour into them and have them pour into me. It was being able to make music. It didn't matter if I ever put out another project again. I love to be able to create. I love to make these songs and shoot videos. So I just started to re-implement the things in my life that brought me joy, and then try to find new things. And traveling the country had become a new thing, because I wasn't traveling much before. You know what I mean? Like I said, it was always about work. So I wasn't doing it just to see these new places and the beauty of my surroundings. So find new things that bring you joy, and remember the things that once did.
That's such solid advice. Being on tour, I came home and I came home. I went with Murs, right? We went on a 2-month tour, 25 states, 50 cities, right?
Okay.
And came back home, and it's great. I never forget, we was at Paid Dues, and rest in peace to Chino XL. He was asking us about the tour, and we told him, and he was like, man, we ain't never had to do a tour that long. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not normal. This is not what it is.
Yeah.
But I tell you this, going to all these cities, having these new experiences every single night made home feel so small.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain to somebody, because it's like, I couldn't stay at home. When I came home, I was like, how did I ever stay in the house every single day after this?
Yeah.
Because every time you go to a new location, it's like new experiences around every single block, and new people, new accents, all these different things. But there is something rejuvenating out there when you kind of do it. Were you ever, I mean, even now, like, do you ever get nerves sometimes being out there, especially, I'm assuming it's just you out here sometimes, huh?
Yeah, most times it is. I wouldn't say so. I think first of all, I've never felt unsafe. I say
Mhm.
that. I always feel safe. You know,
Yeah.
insert whatever you got to insert, but I always feel safe.
I
You
know what
know.
that means. I know what that means. I
Yeah,
won't.
yeah. I always feel safe. But in addition to that, I think you know you can't control anything but you and how you react. So I'm always showing up with love. I'm showing up with curiosity. You know what I mean? I have a respect for the things around me. I'm not going trying to be seen or disrupt my surroundings. I want to come and
Mhm.
observe and hopefully find inspiration from these places, these cities, these people that I'm meeting. Another beautiful thing about it is I was just home in New Orleans a week ago or so. But when I went back home, it was a feeling that I hadn't felt before. I
Hmm.
went back to my city with such an appreciation for New Orleans.
Mhm.
Oftentimes we talk about how we got to get out of our city and it's hard to make it in our hometown, and we have this resentment, especially as artists.
Mhm.
But I feel like my travels, the way that I was going to these different cities and I was approaching
Mhm.
them with curiosity and respect. And I'm like, oh, I want to do this, this, and this. I want to eat here while I'm here and all of that. But then when you get to your hometown, you just
Ain't no place like
going
home,
to the same, so
right?
I went back to New Orleans and I'm like, damn, my city is beautiful. I'm doing things that I hadn't done before. I'm
Yeah.
going to or things that I hadn't done since a kid. Like I'm going to spots that used to bring me joy as a child. And I'm talking about, I just
Yeah.
recently did this last week. So I know that traveling has broaden um just my whole perspective about the beauty of the things around me. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And the nuances and the way that people interact. And I'm paying attention to the way that people communicate in different cities and stuff. So I know it has been a form of inspiration for me everywhere that I've gone, even back in my hometown.
Yeah. I love the way you put that because I don't care. No, I'm a Cali boy. I'm a
Yeah.
Cali boy. I'm a Cali boy. Ain't nobody. I seen some beautiful places out here, but it's that what is it the allure of the unknown, right?
Yeah.
Les Brown said it one time. He said most human beings prefer known hells over unknown heavens, and so there's
Mm,
always the allure of what's the unknown heaven out here. Like I went to Miami. I went to Miami and I see some things I didn't think I was gonna see in this
yeah.
lifetime the way I seen them. And I said, "Oh, it's different out here." But I still couldn't see myself living there as
Mhm.
beautiful as everything was that I seen. I'm talking about the water. As beautiful as everything was, I still couldn't see myself not being in California. Blizzards in Minnesota and the coldest I seen in New York. I was like, you know what? When I get home, I will never appreciate being able to eat an In-N-Out burger as much as I do now, right? And I just had some of the most amazing food around. Like I felt like what's my dude's name? Guy Fieri. I felt like I done went to all
Oh
the
yeah.
drive-ins. Nah, I'm coming back home. So
Yeah.
I'm with you on that sentiment. Another question I got about the van comes here. Where is it at? Right here. Not only are you indie, but you're innovating. You talked about having an app in 2013. I
Yeah.
had an app in 2013 as well. Like, let me find out we really related. Like,
Like, yeah,
let me
you people
find
from
out.
Louisiana. We was working at the same. Let me find out we cousins or something.
Look, that'll be hilarious. Um, what's one thing you've done as an indie artist that made you feel now this is how it should be?
um, there's been several things. There's been several things. If I shoot them off, I can say, a couple months ago, I was recognized by my city. I got a proclamation
Mhm.
from the city of New Orleans for my contribution as an artist. That was amazing because I feel like everybody wants to feel that. So feeling appreciated by home felt really good, but it's also being able to make money
Hmm.
from my intellectual property. every time, I swear, every time I get paid for anything, Curtis, it's as if I'm getting away with something.
Wait a
Because
minute.
this shit is
I
amazing.
know we family, we related. Nope, nope. I don't care what nobody say. That's cousin
Like,
Nati.
oh my
I
God.
swear to you, on my soul, I said that same thing. I was like, I get. That's how I felt when we sold tickets to the show in the living room. Not that it wasn't a quality show, but I said, oh, they're gonna come get me. They're gonna come get me. They're gonna come get me because ain't no way in hell that I did this show. I had two of the homies that came over here was like guest performers, and I had a pizza, not to railroad your story. We had pizza. They went home, and I walked upstairs and I said, I ain't got to go get my car from the valet. I ain't got to worry about drink tickets. I ain't got to worry about who can't get in the venue. I ain't got to worry about nothing except for turning these cameras off and going to bed. I got away with something.
Yeah.
So I'm with you 1,000. But continue. I'm
It's
sorry.
that freedom. It's that freedom, but it's also understanding that, like, this is something you love. You know how they say you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. Like, I truly feel that. I've experienced that. So being able to get paid for my passion,
Yeah.
It's passion projects only, and I'm getting paid for that shit. Every time I'm like, now this is how it should be. I wish this for everybody. I wish that everybody can experience being able to discover their purpose, and then being able to make a living from their purpose.
Now
that's how it should be.
That's how it should be. Yo, this is my cousin. I don't know if you heard she, my cousin, a legend. This is my cousin right here. First of all, look. So we know we live in a time, and I'm sure if you follow my content, we call Spotify opify over here, especially thinking about the way streaming and the direction is going. But you just expressed it right now. Before I get to this first question I have about music streaming, let me ask you this. What are some slept on streams of revenue for independent artists that you'd be willing to share with these independent artists that are here?
Sharing a knowledge. A lot of times, well, I would say this, right? There are a few things, but this is more accessible to everybody. I feel like what you know and your experiences, you have the world literally in the palm of your hand. You are an expert at something. You know what I mean? Initially, social media was, we're watching these celebrities. Content wasn't as prevalent as it is now. So, and it kind of almost was looked down upon. You know what I mean? But now it's accessible to so many people, and you may have a niche that may be outside of your scope of making music. You might know how to engineer really well, or something like me. I told you I was on my roof. I was building certain things, and that brought a whole new wave of people to me who was just coming to learn how to fix something around their house. And then they're like, oh, she rap? She wrote. And then now they're discovering me in new ways. So even if it's not sharing it online, I always felt like when you walk into a space and you bring value, you're going to tap into a revenue stream if you do it on a consistent basis. When you bring value, you get paid straight up. So I would say that for me, because that's what I did when you mentioned like me with the real estate, and I do consultations on my website. I do it every Wednesday and Sunday. So I talk to artists about how they can create different revenue streams, songwriting, how I have been able to write for other artists and maintain an independent lifestyle. I have not worked for anyone since 2009. So I've been making music straight up since 2009.
That's my cousin. That's my cousin. If you need to get to know her, if you don't, that's my cousin.
Straight up. So, wow. So I may not know, with whoever, if you at home, I may not know what your specific skill is, but you know what it is, and learn how to monetize that.
You know what's so scary about this? You're gonna stop doing this. I promise you. You just looked up Chat GPT. This ain't your real years. You know my last job?
When?
Just take a wild guess. What year?
2009.
Yep.
I'm feeling like we might be twins or something. Some long lost.
Come on. Hey,
for real.
Look, At the beginning of 2009, I quit my job at Quiznos in Carson, California. By the mid 2009, I was working at a company that was in charge of printing up Wii video games, right?
Okay.
And it was a language barrier, and they wasn't trying to teach my black ass nothing. So I was like, I can't stay here. It was good money, but I was like, I can't. That's not what I want to do. And I
Yeah.
never forget. They used to take our phones before we get into the place because it was like a lot of like security issues for Wii, whatever, Nintendo, whatever. And I remember when I went on lunch break, they let us leave the location on lunch break. And I seen that commercial. You familiar with the Everest College commercial?
The guy who's like, you just sitting there
Sit down on your couch.
Yeah,
and First of all, Babatunde, shout out to him. We've interviewed him a few times on this platform, but I saw that commercial come on my lunch break, and I looked at everybody, I was like, no matter where I'm at, he's still telling me I'm sitting on the couch. And I left.
Yeah.
I took it as a sign. I left and I drove home and I said, I'm never going to work another day in my life. I don't know how I was going to do this, but I said, I'm not working ever again. I went and got myself breakfast at a restaurant I've never been to. And I just started thinking to myself, how are we going to make this happen? Because we're never going back to another job. And since 2009, I have not had a 9 to 5. So hearing you say that give me goosebumps because it take me back to that time period because I know what it was and how crazy that sounds. Now it doesn't sound as crazy because there's so many mom and pop businesses and entrepreneurs and startups. But at that time, that was a very tricky time to say you're gonna do music full time.
Yeah. And it's not always all up. You know what I mean? There's ebbs and flows, I think, but the consistent and the underlying thing is having a love for what you do.
Yeah.
We here for a good time, not a long time. So figure out what you love. Figure out what you love. Because you can't just, die paying bills, doing something that you hate. That is a complete waste of time.
Yeah. Something Les Brown also says. He says the graveyards are full of treasures, right? In that there's so many people who had the potential to do things that they never even tried. Yeah. Right? There's songs that never got written. There's books that never got written. There's, speeches that never got spoken. And so, he kind of says as an eerie reminder that this time is limited. So, use it to the best of your ability. I want to put a pin in something you said since we're talking about streams of revenue. Let's talk about your real estate wins, right? I seen an interview where you said you made over 6 figures on OnlyFans. Hold on. Let's continue the statement, ladies and gentlemen.
Wait a minute.
Not doing what people assume, but giving game. How did that whole idea come to life? Break it down for us.
So like I said before, when you are an independent artist or just an independent thinker, you have to think of ways to do things that goes against the grain, because that is going to be your promotion. You don't have a team. So the way that blogs pick up, you do something that goes against the grain, that gets attention. And for me, I kept on hearing this about this OnlyFans. And I'm hearing all of these women who were making so much money, but it was sexual content, right? So I know I'm not going to do that. That's not a part of who I am. But I'm like, OnlyFans, this cannot just be, they could not have made this platform just for what this content is being, or was it being used for, right? So I'm like, all right, what if I was on there and I created a show? Or what if I just gave some game? I was just trying to figure out what could I do on this platform that, like I just told you, brought value. And at the time, that was also when I was doing a lot of the DIY building. I got my auction license. So I started buying and flipping cars. I was doing all kind of things, showing I was buying houses. So I brought 3 houses and I was doing a lot of the work, hiring contractors, so I was filming all of this content, and I started to put that on OnlyFans. And when I did that, a lot of people, first of all, it started to get attention.
Right.
Because
if I put my name next to OnlyFans, Look, let me tell you one thing. Because you're my cousin now, I feel like I'm not
What's up?
embarrassed to tell you this real quick.
What's up?
I was in one of my live streams. You know, you be on live stream long enough, you're gonna have your moments, right? If something
Yeah.
happens. I had a t-shirt that was it was a little bit too high, right? I didn't realize how high it was. And I turned around and I get a text message from one of my moderators, and they said, "Don't read this out loud, but your butt crack was showing."
Oh, them cheeks. Yeah, I have them cheeks.
Yeah. It was
Cheeks in
a
the
crack.
street.
It was a crack of dawn. The crack of dawn. And I went back and looked at the chat, and all I'm seeing is giggles and LOLs. And then somebody said, I got a series called Critique My Beats. And they said, Critique My Cheeks. When is that episode starting on OnlyFans? And I said,
no.
I had super chats that said, no disrespect to your wife, but when you start that OnlyFans, so you put that name next to anything, immediately there's going to be a reaction.
Whoa.
I'd rather use myself as the example, but continue, because this is a brilliant way to leverage, you know, the assumptions and the expectations upon people who should know better about what your brand stands for. And it's like, all right, cool. Now that you hear, it's almost like you putting a vitamin inside of a brownie. But continue. I'm sorry.
Well, when I did it, I made sure that I was not doing the bait and switch. So I promoted it. I'm not getting naked. This is nothing. I told them what I was doing. But of course, people were curious. And then when they came, and it was only like $6, right? So it was like $6 a month. So when they came, I was actually giving game, and people were able to get money, get their auction license. So I was saying how to get your auction license without needing, I mean, anybody can get their auction license. So I was showing me going to get my cars, what kind of cars to get, like all of that type of stuff. So people was actually finding other sources of income because of the help that I was giving them. And when that started to catch on, even slightly, then OnlyFans saw it. And of course, this is like, oh, she's using this platform the way that we would want to. And it was, you know, it's friendly. It's not sexual in nature. So they started to post about me. They put me on their Instagram page. The show, I think it's called Entertainment. It was Entertainment something, the TV show. One of those shows that do editorials and stuff. They hit me up. So I had to talk about that on live TV and all of this stuff. So I got a lot of interest, which brought even more eyes and even more revenue. And then from there, people were booking consultations, and that's how the consultation thing started. So I would get a lot of questions just about how I'm able to maintain as an independent artist without being a household name, you know. So I would talk to these artists and kind of mentor them, and then I migrated that to my website. But that has been a constant thing since then, and it still continues.
I'm telling you, your mind is different. Your mind is different. And I think it's part of the reason why no matter where your brand goes, it stands for quality. It stands for high quality. I don't care if you're doing Instagram vertical content. I don't care if it's a music video. I don't care if it's a feature, the mixing, everything around your brand says quality. And I feel like that's even more important for independent artists, because unfortunately, some people have like stigmas or like biases already baked in about when you say independent. Some people hear that and they're like, okay, it's going to sound amateur. I think they mix up and coming with independent. And it's like, no matter what you've accomplished, you know, people are still try to put those biases on you, but it's dope to see you every time knocking it out the park.
Thank you. That mean a lot too. That mean a lot, because I think it kind of it's changing now, you know, with people such as yourself, with people like LaRussell, with Russ, with Tech N9ne, with Currency, all of these artists. It's changing the perspective of what an independent artist looks like. You can be an independent artist, but moving like a major, carrying yourself and bringing quality and having consistent quality across the board. So I think that is changing with the more work that you and all the DIYers watching this will be doing. You know what I mean?
That's why they don't want us to link. They don't want us to link up on things like this, because you start inspiring minds out here who, you know, are chasing an old model, or a model that is trying to really get people like you in the room so they can understand where things are going next. You know, some of these companies are so married to the old school way of doing things, the legacy,
Yeah.
music industry, that they don't have enough staff to keep up with uh, the many ways that you go. And I feel like that's part of our cheat code too. Is when something needs to change, it doesn't need to go through a chain of 4 or 5 people. It's like, what you want to do? Okay,
Yeah.
let's just go. Let's go to the website and put this up right now.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I salute you. Do you think more indie artists need to diversify beyond music sooner than later?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's with anything, a diversified portfolio all across the board. So, yeah, I mean, I do believe if you do something really well, then continue to do that. Don't have a lack of quality, in this area because now you want to diversify. But yeah, it is very important that if you tell really good stories, you might want to, if you are a great storyteller within your music, you might want to look at creating stories and films, or
Mm,
building an ecosystem around your music. And that's one of the things that I started to focus on. I love storytelling. I have records like Maria and Lil Kim, which are huge records in my catalog.
mhm.
So it was only natural that for my next project, which was my last project, Uptown Butterfly, instead of just doing an album, I did a short film around it. And with that short film, it's sort of like a hip hop musical. So each
Mm,
song on the album, I'm performing, but there's a through line, there's a storyline, and that did really well. I put that on my website first. So
mhm.
I sold the album with the movie direct to consumer on my
Come on.
website for about 6 months,
Yeah.
and then I put it on YouTube I want to say about couple months ago, and it's over 250,000 views, and it did really really well on my website. So I gave people an opportunity to buy that movie and to buy my album first, and then I put it on my YouTube, and that's what I want to continue to do, create these worlds and do things that I enjoy doing, but
Right.
that's also innovative.
That's my cousin, by the way, if y'all didn't know. Yeah, just out here being just a superhero.
Remember that when I pull up out there in Cali, I'm gonna pull a van in the driveway somewhere.
Oh no. Oh no. A DIY legend pulls up to my driveway. What am I going to do? Oh no. It ain't like I got a studio in here. It ain't like I
Let's get
got
it.
a content creation room and a stage.
And a
Oh
stage.
no.
And a stage.
What are we talking about? Of course. So you did mention direct to consumer, and I actually had a question about that, and I guess the follow up too. Obviously you've explored direct to consumer platforms. I want to
Mhm.
know, what is your relationship with music streaming, and do you feel like it helps or hurts artists in the long run?
Honestly, I don't put much of my focus on streaming platforms at all.
Hmm.
I probably should get better at that because it's more accessible, and it helps people discover you, especially with the playlist and stuff like that. But for me, I really enjoy YouTube.
Same.
I really enjoy, I mean, that's my favorite platform. I really enjoy YouTube. So I'll put my stuff there, but my website is 3D Nat'ee land. So
Mm,
everything goes to my website first. When it comes to social media, we saw what just happened with TikTok. Like, these platforms are just rented space that can be snatched from us
mhm,
at a moment's notice. So
mhm.
when it comes to Spotify, when it comes to Apple, when it comes to social media, none of that shit is really my focus. My focus is my website. Like, that is where you go to first. I put out new music all the time. I have a mailing list. I'm in touch. I know the people that follow me, and if they support long enough, then I know a lot of them by names and
Yeah,
all of that stuff. So that's
right.
way more important to me than the yearly Spotify end of the year list or something like that. I know these people. I know who spent what with me. You know what I
Come
mean?
on. That's my
So I'd
cousin, yo.
rather that.
I look, y'all, she really do this. Okay.
Yeah, I love Shopify more than I love Spotify. You know, straight up.
It's like you rap or something. You know what I mean? It's like you rap or something at a high level. It's like you do this for a living or something. It's like you one of
Yeah.
the greatest rappers of this time. And I ain't about to put no greatest female MC. No, you one of the greatest rappers hands down at this time. It's almost like you do this. You know, you should. I told Mick Jenkins that when he's on his couch. I said, "Man, you really good. You should keep going." He just looked at me crazy, like, "What is wrong with you?" So I love that answer. I love that answer. Something I noticed, because I took my music off of music streaming, and when I did that, um, a lot of my DIYers was with me. They was hands on, but I also realized folks be having their own lives, they be having their own situations, and other artists they
Mhm,
want to support.
mhm.
So that's when I realized how important my marketing game was.
Yeah.
I just so happen to have a passion for marketing in the same way that I have a passion for, just album artwork. I have a passion for architecture. I have a passion for composition, and I'm building a passion for color correction and all these different things, or color grading, I should say. But can you speak about your philosophy when it comes to marketing what you're doing? Because it pains me that we have so many people who, when it comes to writing a song, some of the most genius minds on earth. When it
Mhm.
comes to promoting their song, you would think they don't have an ounce of creativity in them. It looks like their Instagram is a brochure of SoundCloud screenshots,
Yeah.
right? They have
Yeah.
no clue. Can you kind of share some of your philosophy when it comes to marketing your songs, marketing your albums? I know you kind of talked about like having a through pattern and whatnot, but can you kind of share that for those who may be struggling with it?
Yeah, that is equally as important. You can enjoy creating these songs, but if you don't put them out in front of the audiences that you need to put them in front of, then you're just doing it for yourself. So, one thing about it is I actually enjoy getting feedback from my music, so that motivates me. I don't like the fact that I have to market my own stuff. I really don't.
Really?
I mean, yeah, I hate it, but I also love community,
Mhm.
community around art. You know what I mean? So, um, even with the show that I created called Gas or Trash, where I have these artists come on and they spit, and then we have built a community of artists, performers, giving feedback, stuff like that. I love to be able to talk about great art or terrible art or whatever. So I know that I gotta put my shit out in that space. I
Mhm.
have to put it out there. So I always come up with creative videos, or I give a bit more into my lifestyle and things like that. And that serves as my marketing, showing my life on the road also while making music. So the marketing is not, I wouldn't say that it's super clever. It's just really real. And I'm grateful that I guess I'm an interesting person enough for people. And then there's a through line from my music to my lifestyle. So
Yeah.
because I'm showing in my vlogs, I'm showing, my life on the road, or some of the experiences that I've been having, or working in a studio with different artists. Because of these things, and I'm being vulnerable and turning the camera on and showing that,
Mhm.
and then my music is a through line, I think it goes hand in hand because people get to watch me and then they can understand the music a little better.
So you said, I guess they engage because I'm an interesting person. I just want to remind you, you casually told us that you built a sauna in your home as you're sitting in a van that you pretty much put together the insides of with your hands.
You know,
Y I and I appreciate the modesty, I do, but I'm just like, "Wait a minute, do we know who we in the presence of right now? That's crazy."
I appreciate that, and honestly, I have to get better at that. It's something that my friends and my brothers, they tell me all the time. It is not a humble, subtle flex or anything. I've
Right.
just been this person since a little girl. I can draw really well. I've always been a creative, right? So sometimes, when you blessed with certain gifts, you forget that not everyone has the same ability. So
Mm.
you'll casually talk about, you know, certain things that you do and forget that, wait, that is what makes you special. So it's not a subtle flex at all.
Uh,
I'm
uh,
just saying, like,
I'm teasing you, but I get them conversations where people be like, "Hey, Curtis, how you do this?" And then when I explain all the steps, they be like, "I think that's all I need,"
right.
with no intent to put any of it in action, and then it dawns on me like, so much of this became muscle memory, but I
Yeah.
was willing to sit with it every step of the way and learn. Like, even when it comes to, I mean, I appreciate the words you said about the camera quality. I'm still looking at things like, damn, my shirt kind of overexposed. But these are things that I'm learning through the process of being having the heart to be bad. I'm first, and
Yeah.
then having the heart to ask people that will be like, well, you don't know about this, and then I don't mind looking stupid if it can create a genius moment in the future.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
And then
always be the one
having
to
that
ask questions.
childlike curiosity, and like I was telling you, your setup, just everything is just
Thank you.
quality. You know, I could
Thank
tell you
you.
take time and you care.
Yeah.
So, but like in this conversation, you just said that that is something that you're growing. You have a growing love and a passion for color
Mhm.
correction. So you
Mhm.
can tell. So that's why it's very important to find those things that you actually love, because
Mhm.
when you do, I'm not seeing any overexposed, like that doesn't, it
Right.
doesn't jump out to me. You know what I mean? That's not where
But you
my passion lies.
but you know how it is. Like, I had my grandmother used to say, the more you know, the more you owe. And I
Mm,
used to think that meant owe to other people. But when in all actuality, it applies a lot more broader to where the more you know, the more you owe to your own process.
yes.
So
Yeah.
when you get exposed to something, you know too much now. Now it's
Yeah.
almost like when I took TV production classes in high school, and he would expose like all the angles that were off, or you could see the cameraman in the glasses of the actor, and you're like, I can't ever see this the same way, or how a over the shoulder shot should be. So there's things now that I've learned. Stop talking, Curtis, because most of the folks that are around you are not like a 3D Nazi who are like, yeah, I hear you. What if we did this? They can't add nothing to it. They're looking at me like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
you end up just sounding like a geek or something. It's all
Pretty
good.
much,
I
yeah.
go full geek mode. I don't care.
Take
Like
pride.
you
I
ask
take
me,
pride.
I'm gonna give
I
you
used to hide
everything.
it. I used to hide it at first, but now I'm
Nah.
like, I'm finna geek out today because you
Yeah.
know, you trust the quality. You trust me, right? You know what I'm finna do with this quality, right? All right, then let me cook.
Yeah.
'Cause I mean, you get folks, you know, that want to hit you up with advice, and it's like, I work, and maybe that's why I'm more so of a solopreneur, and that's the spirit behind it, is that I work better when I'm able to just have the freedom to make mistakes that I
Mm-hmm.
don't pass too hard of a judgment on.
Me too. Me too.
Same, same.
Me too.
We
And that's
related.
why it's important to find your tribe. That's why it's commendable with the community that you have built, because
Mhm.
you're building a tribe of like-minded people.
Yeah.
Like-minded people who can share ideas, who can share thoughts, who can just give you motivation, especially when you are solo. Even though we are solo creators, it doesn't mean that we don't want that crowd cheering for us. So when you have another crowd of people who are off working on their own things as well, but we
Mhm.
are able to champion each other, it's
Yeah.
amazing. That's another reason why I'm grateful to be on this show.
Come on. No, we grateful to have you. But yeah, thank you. Thank you once again for those kind words.
Yeah.
I feel like the people that I work the best with are folks that are what they call them, freelancers, right?
Mhm.
I tend to work better with independent contractors than I do people who, at this stage at least, and maybe that's a deficiency in my leadership at this point, but I work better with folks that I feel like it's a partnership rather than it's the I'm the boss and you're the
Yeah.
employee dynamic. And those people end up being so much more reliable, and they feel autonomy when I give them tasks like creating my vertical short form content. I talk to them
Mhm.
and they're like, do you mind if I, and I'm like, don't even ask if I mind.
Yeah.
I'd rather you I'd rather you, instead of asking for permission, just, you know, say forgive me, but I just wanted to go try this thing. I want folks to have that autonomy. You mentioned that earlier, but I want them to have that autonomy because I feel like the greatest things happen when we're able to combine inspirations that I couldn't even think of solo. So
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to talk.
100%, I agree.
We gotta like my thing is this. You know, I do feel like in a lot of ways I represent the next generation and brand of media. And so one thing that I always try to stress is that we gotta talk about this music. We gotta talk about this music. I want to talk about this music. I want to
Mhm.
get nerdy with you in terms of your pen game, right?
Okay.
You've always been regarded as a top tier lyricist. When you write, are you punching in? Are you writing line by line? Or are you just writing the whole verse before you record?
It has changed over the years. So I used to just write line by line. First of all, initially I used to write with no track.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started writing to the beat line by line. And now it has evolved to I'll come up with a line or two and
Mm-hmm.
then I start punching, then I go back and I may change some things. So it kind of it changes all the time.
Right.
It changes all the time. It depends on what the project is. It depends on if I'm overthinking or if I'm excited or if I'm in a studio with the artist. So it kind of changes. I am no longer holding myself to the standard of just doing it one way anymore, because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like once I've given myself the freedom to be able to choose from different tools when I'm in the studio, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I challenge myself, and that's what has kept it fun for me.
Yeah.
So it's still maybe the first 4 to 6 lines,
Yeah.
and then I get in the boot and I see how I feel. And luckily, my
Mm-hmm.
boot is now back there, so I might
Yeah.
start writing something while I might think of a couple lines while I'm driving, and
Right.
then I'm like, all right, I get excited about it. Okay, and I'll pull over and start a song and finish it. You know what I
And
mean?
then the fireworks go off, and that's what happened. Them fireworks go off because when you pull away, look. They know what it's doing. It's not a mistake no more. The
Clearly,
fireworks go off. We get it. We get it, Apple. Okay,
clearly,
we get
clearly.
it. With that said, it's interesting because I think you kind of made a little bit of a comment on this, but I'm curious because my creative process has the same way. It's shifted as I produce and I write my music as well and I record it. Now that I bring in live streaming into it, it changed it again because now it's like I don't have the luxury of. I mean, I don't take advantage of the luxury of writing for 45 minutes and hoping that people stay here in a
Yeah.
live stream. I feel pressured to still give a bit of a show. And
Mm,
so what it forced me to do was like, what will it sound like if I don't write it down? Will it still be as good?
yeah.
And I learned things along the way, even like how much the setup of my studio changes the speed of certain tasks that I do.
Yeah.
That's just me moving around a keyboard on a desk. You in a damn van that you are going around the world, you eating you having different experiences, talking to different people. We definitely got to talk a little bit, of course, of what is a gas or trash.
Mhm.
But how has the van environment changed your creative process, if at all?
Well, I had a home studio for years.
Mhm.
So I was always afforded the opportunity to be able to just wake up in the middle of whenever and record. But
Mhm.
now that I'm in a van, number one, I get to go and change my environment. So sometimes I can go and park by the water and I might hear a certain beat
Wow.
that kind of goes with my setting and now I feel a certain mood. So I've never had that before. So that's a
Right.
luxury that I'm afforded. I have like blackout shades and everything so you can't see. I have solar power so I can record 24 hours if I want to. I have electricity to do so. So I would say just being able to change my setting has
Mhm.
been the only thing that's changed for me. I used to have like when I moved into the van, there was a lot of bulky equipment that I had to get rid of that I
Mhm.
just couldn't have in the van. So I had the Avalon. I got rid of the Avalon. Um, what else did I have? I had the XP Apollo,
Okay.
the rack mount Apollo.
Yeah, yeah, the strip. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So some of my equipment, of course, had to change. I had to downsize. But
Mhm.
like I said, it was still focused on making sure that the quality, if I couldn't get good quality, I would have
Mhm.
stayed my ass in the house because that's just how important music is to me. You know what
Oh,
I
I
mean?
know. We know. We hear it. We hear. Please believe. We know your quality. We know
Yeah.
that you don't play around with that. And I imagine that had to be a very important piece of, how do I get this sound to not sound like it's inside of a van? And you accomplished
Mhm.
that.
Mhm. Yeah. So
Mhm.
I insulated everything. So of course I'm sitting in a van right now, but I am in a busy on a busy, this is like there's a shopping area or whatever, but you haven't heard too much of what's going on. I can see things
That's
going on
crazy.
around me. Yeah. But that's
You
how
know,
well the insulation is in here.
yeah.
And I filmed a show called Route Radio where I had artists come into here with me and kind of do like a tiny desk type performance in the back, and then they hop in the front seat and we do an interview. So I had Tidra Moses on the show, Paige Kennedy, my guy
Wow.
Mars just did it when I was out in LA. So it was very important that I have good sound in here, quality.
Yeah, it sounds so damn good. I just realized how good it sounds because I said I haven't heard one horn go off. I ain't heard no. And when we doing, it's almost like the pandemic again when we do these interviews, and that you sometimes we are victims to the elements. Sometimes a lawnmower went off during Glass's interview, and you are in your van, and it sounds like you're inside of a studio booth.
Well, what's crazy is that's coming from this laptop right now. So you may hear a little something because I'm not using my mic. But if I was to set up my mic with my Chaotica eyeball, it's just, it's top notch.
Let's talk about gas or trash. It's dope to see you sharing your platform with so many. And that's something I think that's been a consistent thing throughout your whole career is that, you've always looked for the community and what you're doing. What inspired you to start Gas or Trash? And obviously, I definitely want you to describe it for those who've never seen the series. And what's the biggest takeaway you hope artists get from it?
So Gas or Trash is a show where I travel in my van all across the country and I meet up with different artists in different cities and they perform, and I have my, my community online, share, give love or loving critiques. And let everybody know, let the artists know if they feel that the performance is gas or trash. So I've been everywhere from Arizona, like out in Sedona, to Jersey, to Chicago, like everywhere. I've been all over the country. And what inspired it was I was back home in New Orleans. I was stopping at a store, and there was these guys just standing outside of the store, and the energy from one of the dudes was kind of, I knew that he was in the streets. I knew he was going through something, and they knew who I was. So they stopped me and started talking to me or whatever. And I just felt his energy. So I asked him, what did he want to do? Like with his life, what's going on with him? And he was like, well, I just want to put my niggas on. Right.
Wow. So
I'm like, that's interesting. Cause y'all all just standing outside the store. I know y'all,
right.
So I had my camera out and I put the camera in his hand, and immediately he was like, I can hold that. I could tell he was shocked that I trusted him with this valuable piece of equipment. Right. So that made him open up a little bit more to me. But what I noticed about him and what he did immediately was turn the camera on his friend, and he told him to rap something. So he was exactly what he said he would do. He took advantage of that moment and he shined the light on his friend. And that really inspired me because I'm like, here I am. I have over 2 million followers across all my platforms. And this guy, the first opportunity he got, he shined the light on his partner.
Wow.
So that inspired me. And I was like, something I said then to the guy, I'm looking in the camera and I'm like, all right, y'all that's watching this, let me know if you think it's gas or trash. Cause I was at a gas station. It just came in my head. And
and you're one of the most elite lyricists. So, that kind of just point. Anyways, but go ahead. Continue.
Thank you. So, I posted that with no intentions for me to do anything outside of just showing them love. Right. And I posted it on my Instagram, and everybody, he was dope too. So everybody was saying gas, gas, gas. So what I started to do was, a couple months later, I thought about that instance, and I started to get on lives every Wednesday, and I would do the Gas or Trash live. Now, at this time, I was still living in my place. So when I ended up getting the van and moving, I'm going to different cities, and artists that knew me, they would see me and they would ask to spit for me. And I'm like, damn, I should just turn this into a show. And that's how it started.
Shout out to you. That right there. That. It's funny because I had just saw a video on Instagram where um it was I believe it was a priest, and he was talking about how he was outside and it was a homeless man that asked him for money, and he was like, well, I can't give you money, but if you tell me what you want to do with the money, I can go get you a meal or something. And he was just like, nah, never mind, all I need is $1. And
Mm-hmm.
he said, the priest looked at him and he was like, he didn't want to support his habit if maybe he's a alcoholic. He's passing judgment on the man without
Mm-hmm.
realizing. He said that homeless man went to another homeless man, asked him for $1, and without even thinking, gave him the dollar.
Yeah.
And when he saw that, he said he felt so bad because he looked at that situation. He's like, here's someone who doesn't have anything
Mm-hmm.
and needs
Mm-hmm.
that for themselves. And in that moment, like you said, with the artist, he turns the camera on somebody else. He could easily be like, look, this is my story. I got my cash app.
Yep. Yep.
Boom.
And that was so inspiring for me. It was so inspiring because, like I said, all of this time being an independent artist, it's like you constantly make a way out of no way. It's like you are constantly doing the impossible. You're making music, you're creating these ideas, and then you're getting paid for it when you see your friends or other people going to work doing 9 to 5s and stuff like that. When you are afforded this opportunity, which is such a blessing, it's a huge blessing. So just like you are looking for ways to create and stay afloat as an artist, you also have to understand that blessing. So you still got to look for ways that you can share and give and pour into. And I was like, damn, he did this in the blink of an eye.
Wow.
And there's still ways that I can give back. No, I'm not the biggest artist in the world. No, I don't have the hugest platform, but there's still ways that I can be a vessel and I can be of service with what I do have. So that is how Gas or Trash, that is why I am doing the work that I'm doing with Gas or Trash.
Look at the DIYers. Gas or Trash is a cousin to critique my beats. Y'all really are similar.
That's true.
I left it alone because I was like, all right, I'm not trying to force the issue. Like, okay, we get it. Y'all related, but like
what's up, Afro Butterfly? I like that name too.
Yeah, that's one of my number one moderators in here, and someone who definitely keeps me very humble because she's one of the ones that started earlier. She made a joke. I didn't highlight it, but she said Curtas King with ASS. They be firing me up in here.
I'm just saying. I'm just
glad you wasn't there that day because
I'm just glad you ain't put the cheeks on the screen while I'm here, bro.
And then one of my moderators actually recorded the video and was like, I bet you're gonna talk nicer to me now, aren't you? I said, I don't talk mean. I don't be mean. I said, what you want? What you want for Christmas? Oh yeah. Well,
not holding me for ransom.
Yeah. At this point, it's like you're not finna make an ass out of. Never mind. Last few questions. You remain independent and ahead of your time. What do you think the future of hip hop looks like, and what do you think the future of hip hop? Because a lot is going on in the last year, but then also the future of independent hip hop.
I'm optimistic about it. We talk about things like AI. We talk about all the changes that has happened. But with the advent of all of these things, I feel like creativity is coming back to the forefront. You know what I mean? I feel like the versatility is coming back to the forefront. It doesn't feel, you used to have to search much harder to find something different than the mainstream. So I feel optimistic about the fact that we are able to discover these artists who are vastly different from what we have been, what's been shoved down our throat for years. So you're able to see these new independent artists. You're able to see these mainstream artists who may continue to sound the same, but it seems like the choice is coming back. You know what I mean?
That's exciting. That's exciting because I really feel like this is getting ready to be a very strong DIY season because when I describe the whole HGTV situation, the tiny house, and then I talk about, you know, the genius of what you do in your business, the genius of all these things are all pointing to the same source. And I feel like this is why folks in here and even myself, I find myself coming home and saying, not what's on TV, but what's on YouTube.
Yeah.
And what channel am I going to turn to? But no, what channel am I going to watch? I feel like that's the new era that we're in. And because of that, you are that for somebody. You're HGTV. You might be Food Network today. You know what I mean? You might be, you know, I don't know what real estate channels there exist, but you might be the real estate channel that day, right? Are you just might be just straight up like there was a video. What video was that I was watching where you put your face on different bodies? And you had like a green screen. Which one was that one?
Please. Oh yeah. So that is called Talk from my album Uptown Butterfly. Yeah.
I wish I had this pulled up, but it had me crying. Go to the Instagram and check it out, because then I got to see the sense of humor, and I'm like, see, it all makes sense because at the source of all this is the same person, and I think that you are a one world with many worlds inside of it. And so when people come to you, that you might just be the replacement for their daytime television. You're gonna be a replacement for it. You make music. So I salute you for holding all of those hats together. I got one more question for you. If we pulled up, right? Let's say we pulled up in New Orleans, or we pulled up to wherever the van is at, and I asked for a 3D Nati starter pack. What would be three things? We would need to survive, or you would need to survive? Excuse me.
Survive.
Like, what's a startup? What's something that no matter where you at in this world, you got to have these three things?
Oh, that's a great question. Damn.
That's my narwhal, you know, in the making. Curtis King narwhal.
That's an awesome question. I never thought about that. I would say my journal.
Okay.
I need my journal. I would say my camera, but now I just say my phone because it's mixed use.
Facts.
And I don't know what that third one would be.
Maybe that studio in the back. I count that as one.
Yeah, if you count the studio is one. Damn.
You could have just said the van. You could have said the van. I'd have been like,
I said the van because my whole house is in here. I thought I would be cheating. The van.
I asked that question because I know there's got to be times where you're picking up and going, especially after one of these gas or trap. I know what it's like because in the house, there's times in the house, I'll be like, I'm not going up them stairs again.
Yeah.
What do I need downstairs? And I think to myself, okay, the Elgato Cam Links, the 2 cameras, I got my HDMIs. Okay, my light. Okay, cool. We're gonna make 3 trips. So I asked that because I know that you it's almost like a minimalist approach that you have to things because of the environment that you've created. I was just curious what that starter pack might be. What is it?
There's so many things. I love this little camera right here. I'm actually filming on another one of these. So this is the Osmo, the Action 4. It's so many things, but I'm glad that you said I could take the van because you know, after I minimized, I had to live a minimalist lifestyle. Before I had a 4-bedroom house and, you know, all of these things. So I had to figure out what would take precedence and what should I prioritize when getting and downsizing into this space. So now I realized that I had so many things that I thought I needed. I did not need them at all.
Yeah.
At all. So now when you ask me a question like that, to be honest, I don't really need much. It's hard for me to think about it because I feel like I got everything at arm's reach, you know?
I can relate. I'm sorry. I lied. Last question.
It's all good. I'm enjoying spending time with you.
Oh, likewise. Yeah. First, a round of applause. This has been definitely one of my favorites because I be talking to people I shouldn't say that. I be having people reach out to me. They be like, Curtis, I'm on my DIY shit. Interview me. And I'm be like, DIY the damn thing. You don't tell me that. Don't tell me that until you're ready to gut out a van. Hello. Get the
Yeah.
I said, I don't think my DIY, if I had to figure it out, it ain't gonna look pretty. It ain't gonna look as good as what you got going on there, but I'm gonna figure the damn thing out because I for sure had to do this. Even like mountain, I got this light up here. We'll see. Especially, we got to do a flocation episode where you pull up, we have the interview, and I make music from scratch on the live. But this light that's mounted, I ain't never dealt with mountain stuff like that coming up. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man.
And I did it, and then the first time I did it, it was a bunch of holes in the wall, and I was like, yep. I probably shouldn't have did that. And now I figured it out, and I was like, I hope it stay together. So I started yanking at it 2 times on the thing up there, and I said, yeah, that's good enough. So now I got this light set up, and I'm like, I get to the point where I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna just find some on. It's not Upwork, whatever that the handyman website. I'm like, let's just figure that out.
It's all good. When I come to Cali, maybe we build something together. Maybe
Teach me something. I try to real
small project. You do a little small project. Maybe you do the flocation. I might build something.
Come on. I'm trying to be
real DIY project.
For real, a real DIY project.
Yeah.
Now, for real. Yeah. Last question is this. What album would you suggest that someone listens to you as the proper introduction to you? And then second, what album changed your life that most people wouldn't expect?
I would say the introduction would be, I have to say 2.
Cool. Yeah.
And I think it should go backwards. So it should be, well, let's do The Regime, my album, The Regime, and then the follow-up, which is Uptown Butterfly. So those 2 albums together, they go hand in hand for me. And it gives you a really thorough look into who I am as not just an artist, but as a person. So the lyricist, the woman, all of that stuff is included on that album. I think that'll really give people a look into who I am. Nice. An album that changed my life.
That people wouldn't expect. So it could be any genre.
Okay. I think saying The Miseducation would be like super easy because I'm such a huge, Lauryn Hill was just such a motivating force when it comes to who I am as an artist. But I would take it back a little further and I would say anything Nina Simone.
Ooh.
Anything Nina Simone. She was just so powerful. Her voice moved, but also the purpose in her music too. You know what I mean? So yeah. I love Nina Simone.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. All right, look, round of applause for 3D9T. This has been one of my favorites. I ain't gonna hold you. It feel like sometimes, I would say it feel like I'm talking to a mirror, but in some ways it feels like I'm talking to an even better reflection because there's so many things that you have achieved as, you know, in your real estate. There's things that I have so many questions about that you have already taken by the hand and you have not waited. You took them by force and you made sure that you educated yourself about things. There's things I got questions about, and I just want to be here to salute you. And I'm so glad that, shout out to my guy Justin who connected us. And
shout out to Justin.
You guys should definitely go check out the video that they did because it'll give you a tour of the actual van. It'll tell you more about 3D9T's story. But cousin, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure.
We cousins now.
We cousins now. It's too late now. Look.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And I feel like it's like I said, it ain't gonna be the last time. We definitely got to link up and cook something up. So
yeah,
final words for the good people, and maybe even you know, the last wise words that you heard that you want to share with the good people.
I would say be yourself. Be yourself. Oftentimes we see the shift, we see what might be popular, and I'm talking about as an artist for sure, but we see what may be getting a lot of attention, what may get a lot of revenue. But when you are consistent and stand 10 toes with who you are, you will get your just due. So be yourself. Don't try to force it. Don't try to force it because it won't last.
Yeah. And where are some places that folks, what would you rather them connect with you? I'm sure the website is absolutely going to come up.
Yeah, of course. 3dnat'ee.com. 3dnat'ee.com. I'm very active. I am the one that, is creating everything, doing all the posts. So even when you go to my website and you sign up for my email, then that's me talking to you. I send out my email list, but also on Instagram. That is probably Instagram and YouTube. I'm on that a lot. So that's my go-to. I post a lot. I'm very active on my YouTube page and I'm very active on Instagram. So it's 3D NATEE on both of those platforms.
Look, you came in here and you made your presence felt today. It's nothing but
Thank
love in
God.
here. Like,
Thank
I know I
you.
haven't been sharing all the comments, but everybody's been tapped into what you're saying. Continue to inspire us all. And really just doing that by you being you, as you said, and also too, you making us see what is possible. And the fact that you're able to just do this at your own pace, that you're able to do what you love, say what you want. I love when you be I would love when you be talking your shit. You be looking at the camera, you be like, "Oh, you had to go do that freaky shit, huh? That's why y'all had say you can't." I ain't had to do that. I be loving it. I be cracking up because I be like, "Oh, she really be talking her shit."
Yeah, for sure. For
We
sure.
appreciate you. And man, DIYers, once again, I want to say thank you to all my moderators holding it down. And 3D9T, the information is in the description below. Y'all have an amazing day. I might come back in a few for a live stream because obviously we had a little disruption in the actual chat. Things will be addressed, but 3D9T, it is a blessing. We will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bye, y'all. Y'all be good.
DIYers, if you enjoyed this content, make sure that you hit the like button and maybe even consider subscribing. Come on, man. Don't be greedy. Peace.